They wheeled me into the bright, cold hallway and left me by the vending machine, the IV pole rattling like a loose bone. Darius stood over me in his navy suit, tie loosened, cologne biting the air. His eyes were dry as the hospital tiles. "Amara, I don't have time for all this," he said, voice steady, like he was asking the valet for his keys. "They'll take care of you." I signed the forms. "What forms?" My lips felt heavy. The room tilted and righted itself, like a small boat on restless water. "Transfer of responsibility," he said. "Charity care. They'll keep you overnight. I've got a meeting." He didn't meet my eyes. He glanced at his phone, at a message flashing across the screen, and the corner of his mouth lifted. The nurse wheeled me toward an empty bay. He walked alongside us for 3 steps, then stopped. He didn't even hold the door. The nurse did that for him. "Darius," I said, forcing my throat to obey. "Please, just—" He took a breath, then bent and kissed the air near my forehead, not touching skin. "We'll talk tomorrow. Rest." The doors swung closed between us, and his reflection in the glass, tall, handsome, always pressed and polished, split into 2 thin shadows before it vanished. They hooked me to monitors that blinked green and gold. My chest was tight, not from pain, but from knowing. Knowing when a man you love has already stepped out of your story and into another one without looking back. I lay still, listening to the hum of the vents, the wheels of beds rolling past, the hush voice of a doctor saying, "Stable for now," as if stability could be rented for an hour. My phone buzzed under my palm. I dragged it up, face unlocked stuttering on my damp skin, and the screen bloomed with the city. Atlanta at twilight, skyscrapers lit like beaded gowns, a rooftop dripping chandeliers, roses crushed into a path, a live stream, a wedding. The camera panned, and there he was, Darius, in the same navy suit, smiling at a woman in a white silk column dress, her hair laid like glass, diamonds falling on her ears like drops of rain. Celine Hart, the woman from the charity gala, the investor who had slipped him a card and smiled at me like I was a plate she didn't order. My heart, obedient and betrayed, kept beating. The officiant's voice floated through my tiny screen and into the hospital air. "Do you, Darius King, take—" The nurse closed my curtain, soft and sorry. I could still hear the vows in the mechanical breath of the room. He hadn't taken me home. He had not called my sister, or my auntie in Decatur, or anybody. He had dropped me at the hospital like a box he didn't want to carry anymore and gone to marry a richer woman under chandelier stars. The camera lifted to the skyline. Someone in the comments wrote, "Legend couple," with 3 hearts. My thumb trembled over the screen. I swiped away. My email pinged. Subject line, "Board call, midnight final." Another ping, "Escrow, ready." Another, "Chairman Diallo, confirmation needed. Midnight. Lagos time." Which meant early evening here. Which meant the number that had lived in my bones for 9 months was now breathing in the open. 8. 8 billion. $8 billion to secure pipeline rights for green energy across 3 states and 2 ports, built on the patents I grew like strange flowers in the back room of our rented house, while Darius complained the blender made too much noise. He didn't know. The NDAs wrapped me tight, the silence heavy and holy. I was not allowed to celebrate yet. I was not allowed to tell the man who had just walked away from me with a pocket square and a brand new bride. A text from an unknown number slipped in, sharp as a paper cut. "He'll never forgive you for not telling him. S. Cellini." Of course. My fingers hovered. I did not reply. I breathed. I fixed the edge of the blanket and stared at the ceiling, tiny holes like 1,000 small eyes, all watching to see if I would cry. I didn't. I let the tears retreat. The monitors clicked and sighed. A child down the hall wheezed a small laugh. His mother hushed him with love. Shoes squeaked. A clock somewhere said 6:42, then 6:43. I closed my eyes and saw the red dirt roads of my grandmother's village, saw the way she tied her headscarf and told me, "Amara, money is only loud when it is borrowed. Real wealth walks quietly." She had taught me to count yams and coins and favors without moving my lips. She had taught me how to carry a full basin on my head without spilling a drop. I opened my eyes and looked again at the live stream. The comments were a river. The ring slid onto Celine's finger like it had been waiting there. The officiant smiled. The skyline smiled. Darius smiled. They all looked rich and clean and old enough to know better. "Mrs. King?" A voice by the curtain. The nurse slipped in, dark locks tucked under a cap, eyes kind. Her name tag said Zuri. "Do you need more blankets? Your pressure's come down a bit." "I'm fine," I said. The words tasted like copper. "Your partner left a note with registration." She glanced at my face when she said partner, an apology woven into the syllables. She placed the folded paper on the tray. "You take your time, okay? Press the red button if you feel dizzy again." When she left, I unfolded the note. It was 4 lines in his neat printing. "Amara, you will be okay here. I can't keep pretending. Please don't call me tonight. I'm sorry for everything. D." No lies, not even a careful one, just a void with ink around it. I breathed again. It was a small, stubborn sound. My thumb hovered over my sister's name. I wanted to run to her voice. I wanted to rest in it, but the NDAs wrapped my tongue, and pride, the kind you earn in the quiet, stood up in me and said, "Not like this." I put the phone face down. The plastic edge of the tray bit my wrist. I rolled my shoulders back. Outside the curtain, a man coughed. In my mind, Olivier Diallo, chair of our African-American West African Consortium, cleared his throat in Lagos, waiting for my yes to unlock the escrow. 8 billion wasn't just money. It was roads and schools and water plants with names that would outlive us. It was everything I had promised myself when I was 12, and selling chilled water in traffic while Mama counted the minutes of shade. Darius had married into flash. I had married into work. Only one of us had ever wanted a crown. The curtain stirred. "You need a discharge signature?" a different nurse called to someone outside. The wedding live stream flashed again on my phone, camera cutting to the kiss. The comments exploded like fireworks. I turned the volume down to a whisper and watched his mouth touch hers. It did not hurt like I thought it would. It was a cold thing. It was a fact. Like rain on a Tuesday. Like a bill due on the 1st. My email pinged once more. "Midnight final. Zoom link enclosed." It was from a secure server. The subject line, a clean blade. I clicked. The waiting room showed a row of black rectangles with names in white. Diallo, Obeng, Wright, Hayes. A slot with my maiden name. Amara Cole. It took me back to the girl with dust on her ankles and hunger that made her smart. Back to the first time I chose Cole on a college form, because it was simpler for tired mouths to say than Chokwukelu, and I promised my father I would carry both names in my heart, even if paper could not carry them together. A shadow stole light from under my curtain. "Mrs. King?" It wasn't a nurse this time. The voice dripped perfume and expensive calm. A silhouette paused at the edge of the fabric, then fingers with a pale French manicure pinched the curtain and slid it open. Celine Hart stepped in like she owned the hospital, white dress falling in silk plains, a shawl like mist over her shoulders. Her diamond bracelet threw small stars on the walls. Behind her, a man in a black suit stayed in the hallway, pretending not to watch. For 1 second, we just looked at each other. The monitors clicked. Her eyes roamed over the IV, the pulse clamp on my finger, the cheap blanket over my knees. She did not look away. She did not look sorry. "I know this is poor timing," Selene said softly, as if we were at a book club and not at the edge of a storm. "But I had to see you. Darius thinks you'll file for divorce quietly and move on. He thinks you'll be reasonable." I said nothing. My silence stacked between us, brick by brick. She glanced at my phone. The Zoom link flashed and went dark. "Midnight call," she murmured. "Interesting." "You came here on your wedding night," I said, each word measured. Her smile barely moved. "I wanted to make sure we understand each other. There are assets to discuss. I need clarity on what you intend to claim, so we can smooth things." "I intend to claim my name," I said. "Everything else can wait." She shifted her weight, that tiny movement rich people make when the floor is already theirs. "Your husband doesn't know, does he?" Her eyes flicked back to my phone, then up to my face. "About the number. About tonight. About how many commas are waiting for you before sunrise." My chest rose, fell. "He doesn't need to know." She nodded, as if I had confirmed the weather. "Then let's keep it that way. Sign here." She reached into her clutch and slid a slim envelope onto my tray, and we all moved forward without drama. Darius will never learn a thing that would complicate his happiness. I didn't touch the envelope. I looked at her wedding ring, the stone the size of a knuckle. It glittered, a little cold sun. For a heartbeat, I saw my reflection in it, small, tired, wrapped in hospital cotton. Then I saw something else. The red dirt road again. My grandmother's hands, dark and steady, lifting a basin high. "Real wealth walks quietly." My phone buzzed. Another email. Escrow. First tranche scheduled. $2,000. The number sat on the screen like a mountain. Celine's gaze slid to it and back up. "You have no idea what you're asking me to sign," I said. "Oh, I do," she said, voice still honey. "I'm asking you to give yourself peace, and to give Darius the story he thinks he deserves." "And what do you think I deserve?" I asked. She leaned in until I could smell vanilla and ambition. A graceful exit, a clean slate, a city that forgets by Monday. Something in me stood all the way up. Not my body, I was still in that narrow bed. Wires on my skin, but the part of me that built a deal from a notebook and a prayer and a stubborn heart, the part that ate no like breakfast. I slid the envelope back across the tray with one finger. No. Her eyes cooled. The man in the hallway straightened, as if he heard the temperature drop. "Think carefully," Celine said. "I have thought carefully for 9 months," I said. "Tonight, I will finish what I started." She watched me in a long, measuring silence that reminded me of boardrooms and chessboards and snakes that don't need to move to be dangerous. Then she smiled again, like the first smile had never left. "Then I suppose we'll see each other soon." She turned to go, then paused and looked back over her shoulder. "By the way," she said, the words delicate as a knife laid on velvet, "there's one more thing you don't know about Darius and your name." The curtain stirred with the air of her leaving, and before I could ask, my phone rang with the Lagos country code, the room filling with the bright insistence of midnight calling. I reached for the green button, eyes still on the trembling curtain, and answered, as the wedding music on the live stream swelled, "This is Amara Cole." The line clicked, voices rose, and the thing Selene had left unsaid hovered between wedding bells and monitor beeps, sharp as a secret about to cut. The Lagos line opened with a crackle like dry Harmattan wind. "Amara," Chairman Diallo said, warm and formal at once. Behind him I heard other voices, a printer, a door closing, soft French, clipped English, Yoruba greetings sliding into American vowels. "I'm here," I said. "Time to walk quietly," he said, repeating my grandmother's proverb like it belonged to both of us. "Confirmation of escrow. First tranche, $2 billion. Second on regulatory clearance. Your patents stay in the Cole Trust until the final vote of the Governor's Council." I swallowed. Understood. A lawyer named Renee from D.C. came on, her voice steady. "We file the last rider in 90 minutes. Please confirm, for the record, that all intellectual property is singly owned by you, Amara Cole, and that you are not under any restrictive covenant with your spouse or any employer." I could feel Selena's perfume lingering in the curtain. I pictured the envelope she left on my tray like a snake coiled under paper. "Confirmed," I said. "Singly owned." "Very good," Renee said. "We'll keep your married name out of this entirely. All signatures as Cole. No social media. No leaks. When the time comes, you'll decide how public you want to be. For now, you are a whisper." Diallo cleared his throat. "And Amara, eat, rest. Do you have someone to drive you home?" Home. The tiny rental with the peeling porch where I had drawn pipeline pathways with a carpenter pencil on the drywall, later covering the lines with framed photos so Darius wouldn't see. The blender he hated, because I used it to grind dried moringa and bitter leaves for energy gels when we couldn't afford supplements. The kitchen table where I wrote grant applications at 3 a.m., with my headscarf slanted and a hoodie on my shoulders. "I'll manage," I said. "You have cousins in Decatur," he said, as if he knew the miles between me and help. "I'll manage," I repeated, softer. When the call ended, the room felt bigger and smaller at once. The nurse, Zuri, slipped in with a plastic cup of water and a real human look. "Your color is back," she said, like she was talking about sunset after rain. "Pressure?" I asked. "Better," she said. "I can get you discharged in 2 hours if you promise to take it slow. Do you need me to call anyone?" I shook my head. "Just a ride. I'll order it." She hesitated. "I don't know what he did," she said finally, "but I know what you can do. Breathe, then move." I smiled, small. "That's the plan." She left, and I pressed my palm flat against the sheet and listened to the machines sing their tiny songs. The word singly from the lawyer kept echoing. Owned singly. Not by marriage, not by love, by work. I closed my eyes and let the backstory unroll, not as an escape, but as a map of how I walked here. My father teaching me to fix the generator with a bent spoon. My mother braiding my hair tight and saying, "Hold your head up. Your mind will follow." A scholarship letter that smelled like a new book and took me from Owerri to Atlanta. The first winter that bit my ears and made me laugh because breath turned to smoke in the air. The internship nobody wanted in a lab with old machines and a stubborn mentor from Alabama who taught me how to make equations listen. Darius, in that same winter, a smile like a warm coat, bringing me jollof from a cousin's kitchen, telling me I was brilliant until brilliant began to scare him. We married at the courthouse with paper flowers and a witness from the next line over. He joked it was temporary until we could afford a real ceremony. And then the joke got old. And then the joke became silence. My ring was small. My hunger was not. The patents came slowly, then all at once. A membrane tweak for water purity. A low-pressure system that could hug underused pipeline and breathe new life into it. A model that made money come where people had only seen bills. While Darius talked about being a brand, I learned to be a ledger, a blueprint, a quiet engine. I asked him to sign an NDA to protect my early notes. He didn't read it. He laughed. "Why would I ever talk about your nerd stuff?" he said, and kissed my forehead. I filed the paper anyway. When my phone buzzed, I thought it was Zuri. It wasn't. It was an email from a paralegal I didn't know, subject line bland as hospital oatmeal. Notice of emergency motion. The body of the email was a single sentence. Service effected on the attached. A PDF sat there like a loaded tray. My pulse ticked up 3 beats. I opened it. Superior Court of Fulton County. An emergency motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. Petitioner, King Heart Holdings, LLC. Respondent, Amara King a.k.a. Amara Cole. Relief sought to enjoin respondent from transferring, assigning, licensing, or otherwise encumbering certain intellectual property pending adjudication of ownership. My mouth went dry, not with fear, but with hot, clean anger. I scrolled. Exhibit A. Assignment and transfer of intellectual property. Signed. The date a week ago. The signature, my signature, looped and slanted exactly the way I write when I'm late for something. The notary seal pressed neat and blue. The printed name above the line, Amara King. I stared so hard my eyes watered. I have not been king on a legal document since I placed those patents into the Cole Trust. I have not signed an assignment to any company. I scrolled back to the top. The registered agent for King Heart was a firm downtown. The address might as well have been a threat. I heard my grandmother's voice again, not a proverb this time, just her low chuckle when somebody tried to cheat her at market. "You see this? They think your eyes are closed." Zuri pushed the curtain. "Ready to walk a little?" I held up the phone. "Do you know what this means?" I asked, my voice calm as I could make it. "An injunction. They want to freeze me." She read fast. Her eyes softened with rage I recognized. "People don't always come here for healing," she said quietly. "Sometimes they come to hunt." She helped me swing my legs over the side of the bed. My feet met the floor like they'd missed each other. We tried a small lap in the hallway, monitors tugging at my skin, the IV pole squeaking. The world steadied. I breathed and moved, like Zuri said. Back in the Bay, I called Renee, the DC lawyer, and sent the PDF. She answered on the first ring. I could hear her typing before I could hear her hello. "They signed you as King," she said. "Not Cole. That's a crack we can drive a truck through. Give me 30 minutes. Do not sign anything else. Do not reply. I'll file a response and a motion to quash. We'll also notify escrow counsel. Worst case, it delays a wire. It does not cancel a deal." "Delays are blood," I said. "I know," she said, "but blood can clot." When I ended the call, the man in the black suit, who had waited behind Celine earlier, appeared at the edge of my curtain like a stain. "Ms. King?" he said, polite as a bellhop. "Cole," I said. He lifted a leather portfolio. "You've been served," he said, and handed me a thick envelope like a prize no one wanted. The seal on it matched the PDF. He nodded, not unkind, and vanished down the hall. I opened the envelope. It held the same documents, plus one more. A spousal contribution statement, dated 2 years ago, name Amara King, acknowledging that all developments within the marital household constituted community property and were assigned to the King family enterprise. The signature was mine again. The letterhead was a credit union where we'd refinanced our car. I remembered that day. The rushed signatures, the stack of forms, Darius tapping the table, saying he was late, me signing the last 3 pages without reading, because the manager said, "These are standard." I had always read. That day, I didn't. I sat very still. The ocean of numbers in my inbox, the 2 billion knocking on escrow, the dreams I had lined up like ships, everything kept moving, but inside me, something froze, and then thawed into a clarity I could taste. Zuri looked from the papers to my face. "You're going to fight," she said, not a question. "There's nothing else to do," I said. "They think my name is a key they can copy, but the lock is older than that." I dressed slowly. Soft pants, the hoodie with the frayed cuffs, socks that did not match. Zuri unhooked my IV with a hiss and a click. "I'll walk you out," she said. At the elevator, my phone rang again, Diallo's number. I answered and listened in silence. His voice was tight. "Escrow counsel just flagged a court filing," he said. "Protocol requires a temporary hold until the judge reviews. 48 hours, maybe 72. I looked at the brushed metal doors, the small scratches like a city map. "Understood," I said. The word came out flat. "Amara," he said, softer. "They came hunting on your wedding night. That means they are afraid." The elevator doors opened on a lobby smelling of disinfectant and lemon. Outside the glass, rain silvered the street. Zuri squeezed my shoulder. "Keep your head up," she said, like my mother. I stepped out into the wet, pulled my hood over my braids, and felt the cool air pinch my cheeks. A city bus sighed. A woman laughed into her phone. A cab splashed through a shallow lake at the curb. Life, uninterested in my drama, kept going. A black SUV rolled up, and the back window slid down. For a second all I saw was my own reflection in the glass, small and stubborn. Then the face behind it resolved, familiar in a way that knocked the breath from my lungs. It wasn't Darius. It was a man I hadn't seen in 10 years. The last person I expected to step into my story tonight, holding up a document with my maiden name typed clean across the top and saying, through the rain, "Amara, get in. They're trying to erase Cole, and I know how." The papers in my hand trembled, the injunction burning like a brand. The SUV door unlocked with a soft click, and I had one heartbeat to decide whether to climb in or face the storm alone. The rain-slicked pavement shimmered like black glass under the hospital lamps. My reflection stared back at me from puddles, tired eyes, braids half loosened from sweat, hoodie clinging to damp shoulders. The SUV idled, dark and waiting. The hum of its engine vibrating in my chest, and the face inside. "Ezra?" My voice cracked like a door hinge rusted from years of silence. He hadn't changed much, still tall, skin deep brown, jawline sharp as it had been in Lagos a decade ago. His eyes carried the same intensity that had once made investors tremble and village elders nod. But there was something else now, something carved from loss and battles fought behind closed doors. "Yes, Amara." His voice was deep, steady, and carried the weight of familiarity that rattled my bones. "Get in. They've already filed papers. If you walk out of here without protection, you'll lose more than you think." I froze at the curb, rain spitting against my face. 10 years ago, Ezra Cole, my older cousin, once a golden name in both Atlanta and Lagos circles, had vanished into scandal. Accusations of fraud, whispers of betrayal. He had disappeared before any court could declare him guilty or innocent. The family split down the middle, half defending him, half ashamed. And now, here he was, at my hospital door, on the very night my life fractured. "Why now?" I asked, clutching the thick envelope Cellini's lawyer had forced into my hands. "Why tonight?" "Because," he said, leaning forward, "they're not just trying to steal your patents. They're trying to erase the Cole name. And I won't let them finish what they started with me." The SUV door swung wider, and for a moment the temptation to step in nearly buckled me, but suspicion coiled tight in my chest. "You think I'll just trust you after 10 years?" I asked. "After you vanished when the family needed you most?" Ezra's jaw worked. He didn't flinch at the accusation. "I didn't vanish, Amara. I was forced out. The same players, King Hart, their investors, their lawyers, they painted me as a criminal because I found out too much. I stayed silent so the rest of you wouldn't be dragged down. But tonight—" His eyes flicked to the envelope in my hands. "Tonight, they've come for you." The rain thudded on the hood of the SUV like impatient fists. My body swayed between fear and faith. "Show me," I said finally. "Show me proof." He nodded once, slow, like he had expected me to demand that. He lifted the document he'd flashed through the window earlier. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw my maiden name, bold and clean. Amara Chokukelu Cole. "This," he said, "is the original registry filing of your first patent, the one you drafted at Georgia Tech, in that cramped student housing unit before Darius ever entered the picture. They can wave fake signatures, conjure up assignments from thin air, but this," he tapped the paper, "is iron, dated, notarized, and stored in a vault I kept hidden. I knew one day you'd need it." I stepped closer, rain soaking my socks. "And why would you keep my patent records hidden all this time?" Ezra's voice dropped, softer. "Because I promised your father before he died. He told me, protect Amara's mind. It's worth more than gold. I couldn't protect him from the sickness, but I could protect you from the wolves circling even then." My throat burned. I remembered Baba, his hands rough from carpentry, his laugh that filled our village like drums. He had loved Ezra like a son, and he had loved me like the last star in the night. Still, I hesitated. "You expect me to just walk away from everything I know and climb into your car?" Ezra leaned forward, eyes locking on mine. "No. I expect you to decide if you want to walk into this storm alone while they strip your name clean from history, or walk with me and fight." The rain pressed harder, cold needles on my scalp. Behind me, the hospital doors slid open, spilling warm light, and the shuffle of nurses changing shift. In my pocket, my phone buzzed, another notification from Renee, my lawyer. "Court hearing expedited to 10 a.m. tomorrow." Tomorrow, less than 12 hours. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about money. This was about identity, lineage, and survival. I took a breath that shook the air, and I opened the SUV door. Inside smelled of leather and faint eucalyptus. The warmth hit me first, then the silence, thick, guarded. Ezra's driver, a heavy-set man in a flat cap, glanced at me in the rearview mirror but said nothing. "You're making the right choice," Ezra murmured as the SUV rolled into the wet night. "But listen to me carefully, Amara. Every move you make from here must be deliberate. They want you to panic. They want you to break." "Celine came to me tonight," I said, "at the hospital. On her wedding night, she asked me to sign away my rights." Ezra's mouth curled into something between anger and amusement. "She plays fast. That means they're desperate. They know once escrow clears, Your position is untouchable. Their only weapon is confusion and forged paper. I stared out at the Atlanta streets sliding past, strip malls glowing, potholes filled with silver rain, neon signs flickering over late-night diners. It felt unreal, like a stage play I'd been shoved into. "Why is Darius even doing this?" I whispered. "He had everything with me. We built a life. Even if it was small, it was ours." Ezra shook his head. "Darius doesn't see value in roots, Amara. Only in fruits. He wants to pluck the ripe ones without tending the soil. That's why Selene chose him. He's malleable, ambitious, and blind to legacy." Legacy. That word hit me deep. I remembered Mama telling me, "A name is a tree, Amara. It will shade your children, or it will shame them." I clenched my fists. "Then they picked the wrong tree to cut down." Ezra smiled faintly. "That's the Amara I remember." The SUV turned onto Peachtree, lights from towers glinting off wet glass. We pulled into an underground garage beneath an old bank building. The driver parked, killed the engine, and stepped out. Ezra motioned for me to follow. The garage smelled of damp concrete and oil. We took a service elevator up 2 floors and stepped into an office space dimly lit by desk lamps. Maps, charts, and file boxes were scattered like a war room. A single monitor glowed with scanned documents. Ezra gestured to the table. "Sit. We don't have much time." I lowered myself into a chair, clutching the damp envelope Selene had given me. Ezra spread out the papers he'd carried. My original patent filings, photographs of notary stamps, time-stamped emails. "These," he said, tapping the stack, "prove the inventions were always yours. Registered before your marriage, untouched by community property laws." But he slid over the forged documents I'd received earlier. "These are what they'll parade in court tomorrow. Look closely. What do you see?" I studied them. My supposed signature. My supposed acknowledgement. My chest tightened, because they looked real. My handwriting. My slant. Even the impatient loops I made when rushed. "It looks like me," I whispered. "But it's not." Ezra leaned closer, eyes sharp. "Exactly. They lifted samples of your signature from public records, layered them with AI-assisted forgeries, then notarized with a complicit clerk. I've seen this play before. They used it on me 10 years ago. But we can prove tampering, if you let me help." I swallowed. The room felt heavier with every word. "If I let you help Ezra, what do you want in return?" His gaze softened, and for the first time I saw the cousin I'd known before scandal. "Not money, Amara. Not recognition. Just redemption. Let me clear my name by protecting yours. Let me put coal back where it belongs." Silence stretched. Rain ticked faint on the window. Somewhere in the building, a pipe groaned. Finally, I said, "Fine. But if I sense betrayal, if I sense even a shadow of it, I walk." Ezra nodded solemnly. "Fair." He pulled a laptop closer, fingers flying across keys. "Renee's filing will hold them off, but we need more. I'll send these originals to the judge's clerk by morning, sealed and notarized anew. And we'll leak just enough to the consortium board to show that King Hart is attempting fraud. Once Diallo sees the proof, escrow can't legally freeze." I exhaled. For the first time since Darius left me at the hospital, I felt a small ember of control. But it flickered when Ezra added, "There's one more thing you need to know. Selene didn't just marry Darius for love or even money. She married him to anchor her legal standing. If she becomes his wife, she can claim spousal rights to whatever community property the court recognizes, even retroactively." The words landed like thunder. So if the judge accepts those forged papers, then Celine inherits half, Ezra finished grimly. Not just of the patents, of the deal. 4 billion. My hands trembled against the table. The thought of Celine Hart, diamond-dripping, silk-wrapped, ambition-born, walking away with 4 billion of the blood I bled into these inventions, made my vision blur. No, I said, my voice low but sharp. Not while I breathe. Ezra's lips pressed into a thin smile. Then we fight, and we fight tonight. We worked through the night, Ezra scanning, emailing, drafting affidavits, me recording voice memos attesting to timelines, pulling old emails from my university archives, even finding one photograph of me in that cramped student apartment. Blueprints spread across the table, my name scrawled in marker. Every piece of evidence felt like laying bricks in a wall I hoped would hold. But as dawn bled pale through the blinds, a knock thundered at the office door. 3 sharp raps, too deliberate to be friendly. Ezra froze. I felt my chest tighten. The driver stepped from the shadows, hand sliding into his jacket. "Who knows we're here?" I whispered. Ezra's eyes narrowed. "Only one person," he said grimly. "And if she's found us this fast?" The knock came again, louder this time, rattling the frame. "Then Celine's game is bigger than we thought." The handle turned slowly, metal creaking, and the door began to open. The door swung inward with a slow, deliberate creak, the kind of sound that makes your stomach tighten before your brain understands why. Ezra's driver had already pulled a sleek black pistol halfway out of his jacket. He stood angled, steady, eyes fixed on the door. I held my breath, every nerve lit like fire. And then she walked in. Celine Hart, still in her silk gown, though the hem was damp from rain. The diamond bracelet flashed under the dim desk lamp, scattering shards of light across the wall. Her makeup was immaculate, her composure terrifying. Behind her stood 2 more men in tailored suits, the kind who didn't need to introduce themselves as security. Ezra let out a sharp breath. "You must be insane, Celine." Celine smiled thinly, shutting the door behind her with the care of someone who believes she controls every room she enters. "Not insane, Ezra. Efficient. You thought you could hide Amara away in this dingy little war room? Please. I've been 2 steps ahead since the hospital." I gripped the edge of the table, refusing to let her see my fear. "Why are you here, Celine? Shouldn't you be off celebrating your wedding night?" Her eyes flicked to me with deliberate slowness. "A marriage is more than vows and champagne. Amara, it's strategy, and I don't waste time on sentiment when there are billions at stake." Ezra stepped forward, blocking half her view of me. "Leave, now, before this gets messy." Celine didn't flinch. Instead, she gestured to the envelope I still clutched, rain-stained and heavy. "I see you've read our little motion. Clever girl. But here's the thing. You're already cornered. Those signatures may be forged, but courts don't deal in feelings, they deal in paper. By the time you prove anything, escrow will be frozen. And once it is, the deal collapses under its own weight. Your consortium partners will scatter. Diallo will wash his hands of you. And guess who'll be left standing with the pieces?" Her smile widened. "Me, and your husband." The words stabbed deeper than I expected. My husband. No, her husband now. And she wore the title like a crown, daring me to challenge it. I forced my voice to stay level. "Darius doesn't even know about the deal. You're marrying a man who's completely in the dark." Celine tilted her head, pity dripping from her expression. "That's where you're wrong. He knows now." My heart lurched. "What?" She stepped closer, diamonds catching the lamplight. While you lay in a hospital bed, I showed him everything. The patents, the escrow, the board emails. Do you know what he said? She mimicked Darius's smooth tone. Why would she keep this from me? Ezra's fists tightened. You're lying. But I knew. Deep in my chest, I knew she wasn't. Because Darius's pride was a fragile glass, and withholding this from him, whether by law or necessity, was the one crack that could shatter it completely. He hates you now, Selene said softly, eyes locked on mine. Not because you left him, but because you succeeded without him. The room seemed to tilt. I remembered every late night grinding leaves into powder while Darius complained about noise. Every grant application written in silence, every next time I accepted when he failed to show up for me. And now he hated me for thriving in the spaces where he was absent. I swallowed hard. So what do you want, Selene? You didn't come here just to gloat. She leaned against the table, far too close. Simple. Sign over half. Publicly acknowledge Kinghart as your joint enterprise. In exchange, we'll let you keep your face in the picture. You'll still be Amara Cole, the visionary, but you'll stand beside us, not against us. Ezra barked a laugh. She'll never agree. Selene's eyes glinted. She might, if she realizes the alternative. You see, Amara, I don't just play with contracts. I play with perception. By tomorrow morning, headlines will read, Estranged wife of billion-dollar groom fabricated claims to steal tech from family holdings. By noon, your credibility will be dust, and credibility is the only currency investors truly trust. Her words hung heavy, sticky. I felt the weight of them pressing against my ribs. For a fleeting second, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, yielding half would keep the peace, keep the dream alive, even if tainted. But then I heard my grandmother's voice again. Fierce and unyielding. Real wealth walks quietly. Quiet wealth didn't beg for validation. Quiet wealth didn't sell its name to the loudest bidder. I straightened. No. The single syllable landed like a stone. Selene's smile faltered for the first time. Think carefully. I have, I said, for 9 years. For every night I chose work over sleep. For every time I wore the same dress while building what no one believed in. And I will not hand it to you like a gift bag at your wedding. Ezra grinned, proud. That's my cousin. Selene's mask slipped, her eyes hardening. She leaned in until her perfume filled my lungs. Then you've declared war, Amara, and wars have casualties. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, expression flickering, then turned sharply on her heel. Come, she snapped at her guards. They followed without hesitation. At the door, she paused. Tomorrow at 10, the judge will hear the motion. You have less than 12 hours to decide whether to bleed in public or bow in private. And with that, she left, heels clicking like gunfire down the hall. The silence after her departure was louder than the confrontation itself. Ezra rubbed his forehead. She's bluffing. No, I said quietly. She's not. She'll use every tool, media, money, manipulation, but she underestimated one thing. Ezra raised an eyebrow. Which is? She thinks I'm alone. I turned to him fully. But I'm not. You said it yourself. This isn't just about patents. This is about the Cole name. And if there's one thing we do well, it's endure. Ezra studied me, then nodded slowly. Then we fight. Together. We spent the next hours preparing for war. Affidavits, video evidence, sworn statements from my professors at Georgia Tech. Ezra connected me to a network of allies I hadn't known he still had. journalists, notaries, even a former federal investigator who owed him a favor. Piece by piece, we built a wall higher than Selena's ambition. But fatigue gnawed at me. By 4 a.m., my eyes burned from scanning documents, my head heavy with too many voices, too many strategies. I stepped onto the balcony of the office, letting the damp morning air cool my skin. The city stretched out, quiet, waiting for its daily noise to begin. And I wondered, what would you do if you were me? If your husband betrayed you at the very moment your dream was about to bloom? If the woman who replaced you demanded half of everything you bled for? Would you fight tooth and nail, risking your reputation? Or would you yield, keep a fraction, and live quietly in peace? Dear viewers, pause with me here. What would you have done in this moment? Would you walk into court ready for war? Or would you sign and save your peace? Tell me in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Because as dawn rose over Atlanta, and I prepared to face the judge, I didn't yet know the secret Selene was holding back. The secret that could shatter everything. Deal, name, even bloodline. And when I found out, it nearly destroyed me. The courthouse loomed like a fortress of stone and glass, its columns streaked with rain, its steps slick beneath the morning drizzle. By 9:30 a.m., the plaza was already buzzing with reporters, cameras perched like vultures, microphones waving in the air as if they could pluck truth straight from the wind. I pulled my hood lower over my braids, heart hammering with each step I took. Ezra walked beside me, dressed sharp in a charcoal suit, his jaw locked, eyes scanning the crowd for threats. His driver shadowed us from a distance, one hand resting casually in his jacket. And there they were, Darius and Selene. He looked as polished as ever, in a navy three-piece, jaw freshly shaved, cufflinks gleaming like small suns. His hand rested on the small of her back, possessive, proud, rehearsed. Selene was radiant in a cream suit dress, hair pinned in a sleek bun, makeup sharp enough to cut glass. She smiled at the cameras, waved as though she were the star of a movie premiere, not the villain of my life. My stomach twisted when Darius's eyes met mine. For a fraction of a second, I thought I saw hesitation, maybe even shame. But then Selene tugged his arm, and the mask of arrogance slid back over his face. He leaned down, whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, loud enough for reporters to catch. "Amara!" a voice barked. A reporter shoved forward, microphone extended. "How do you respond to allegations that you forged documents to claim technology that rightfully belongs to King Heart Holdings?" The crowd of cameras swiveled toward me like a field of sunflowers. My chest tightened, but Ezra touched my elbow. His whisper was sharp. "Look straight ahead. Don't answer. Let them stew." I forced my gaze forward and climbed the steps, but inside, fury burned like a brand. Forged documents? That was their script? To paint me as the thief of my own blood? Inside the courthouse, the air was cooler, cleaner, but heavy with expectation. Lawyers milled about with stacks of folders. The clerk's desk rang with the clatter of stamps. Security buzzed a man who'd set off the metal detector. Our hearing was scheduled in courtroom 3B. Ezra and I slipped into the wooden pews behind our attorney, Renee, who had flown in overnight from D.C. Her crisp suit was wrinkled from travel, but her eyes were sharp as knives. She slid me a reassuring glance before flipping through her file. Across the aisle, Selene and Darius sat with their legal team, a trio of expensive suits who whispered and smirked like wolves scenting blood. Celine caught my gaze and tilted her head, the faintest smirk curling her lips. The bailiff called the case. King Heart Holdings versus Amara Chukukelu Cole. Hearing my full name out loud, unmarried, unbowed, sent a surge of pride through my veins. I sat taller. The judge, a stern black woman with graying locks pulled into a bun, peered over her glasses. "Counsel, proceed." Celine's lead attorney rose first. His voice was slick, rehearsed. "Your Honor, the matter before you is straightforward. Our clients, King Heart Holdings, seek an injunction to prevent Ms. Cole from unlawfully transferring or profiting from intellectual property that was developed within the marital estate of her marriage to Mr. Darius King." He gestured to a stack of papers on the evidence table. "As Exhibit A shows, Ms. Cole signed acknowledgments confirming joint ownership. We request immediate injunction to freeze her ability to act on these patents until proper adjudication is completed." The judge nodded slightly, turning to Renee. "Response?" Renee stood, composed as steel. "Your Honor, the petitioner's claim rests on forged documents. My client, Ms. Cole, placed all patents in the Cole Trust years prior to her marriage. Furthermore, the so-called acknowledgments they reference use a name, Amara King, that she has not legally used on any patent filing. We have notarized originals to prove this. The injunction is not only baseless, it is a calculated attempt to sabotage an $8 billion international deal that benefits communities across 2 continents. The room buzzed at the number. Even the judge's eyebrows twitched. Celine's lawyer pounced. "Objection, Your Honor. Opposing counsel is attempting to sensationalize with irrelevant financial figures." "Overruled," the judge said firmly. "The scope of the deal speaks to motive. Continue, Ms. Hayes." Renee laid down the notarized originals Ezra had guarded. She spoke with precision, drawing the judge's eyes to every flaw in the forgeries. The altered notary seal, the signature slant inconsistent with my historical samples, the timestamps misaligned with known public filings. Then she played her trump card. A video call recording from my professor at Georgia Tech, confirming I had submitted my first prototype under my maiden name before I even met Darius. For the first time, I saw Celine's mask falter. Just a hairline crack, but enough to make my chest expand. But then she moved, smooth, deliberate. She leaned over and whispered to her attorney, who nodded and requested to submit new evidence. The judge sighed. "Proceed." Celine's attorney pulled out a slim folder. "Your Honor, in addition to the documents already presented, we have come into possession of a sworn affidavit from Ms. Cole's own husband, Mr. Darius King. In it, he testifies that Ms. Cole worked on these projects while living under the marital household, using shared resources, and that he personally contributed financially to her research." He handed the affidavit to the clerk. The judge skimmed it, lips pressing thin. My stomach dropped, my head spun. Darius, my Darius, had sworn under oath that he funded me, that he helped me. I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug crescents into my palms. Memories flooded back. Me pawning my laptop to buy lab parts. Me walking miles to catch free Wi-Fi at coffee shops. Me scraping pennies from tutoring to pay filing fees. Darius had never lifted more than a finger for me, and now he dared to claim he built the house I laid brick by brick. "Your Honor," Renee said quickly, "we request to cross-examine Mr. King on this affidavit." The judge nodded. "Bring him forward." Darius rose, adjusting his tie like he was about to give a keynote speech. He raised his right hand, swore the oath, and took the witness seat. His eyes never once met mine. "Mr. King," Renee began, You testified that you contributed financially to Ms. Cole's research. Can you specify how? Darius smiled faintly. Yes, our joint accounts covered utilities, groceries, household needs. That support allowed her the stability to pursue her projects. Without my contribution, she could not have dedicated as much time. My mouth fell open. He was twisting survival into sacrifice, convenience into contribution. Renee pounced. So, to be clear, you are claiming that paying the electricity bill entitles you to ownership of international patents? Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Darius's jaw tightened, but he didn't falter. Yes, a marriage is a partnership. Renee's voice sharpened. Then why, Mr. King, did you abandon your wife at the hospital last night and marry another woman hours later? Gasps filled the courtroom. Even the judge's eyes narrowed. Darius stiffened. That is irrelevant to— It speaks to credibility, Your Honor, Renee pressed. This man claims to have sacrificed for his wife, yet abandoned her in crisis and publicly aligned with a mistress. We question the reliability of his affidavit. The judge banged her gavel lightly. Noted. Continue. I watched Darius squirm under Renee's precision, but Selene's gaze stayed locked on me. Cold, calculating. She was waiting. She hadn't played her final card yet. I could feel it. And then it came. Selene herself rose, requesting to testify. The judge allowed it. She glided to the witness seat like a queen entering her throne room. Sworn in, she sat tall, eyes glittering. Ms. Hart, Renee began, why are you personally invested in this case? Because, Selene said sweetly, I am now Mrs. King. And under Georgia law, community property extends to me as his legal spouse. Renee frowned. But you married Mr. King less than 24 hours ago. Selene's smile widened. Marriage is marriage, Ms. Hayes. The timing doesn't erase his contributions to Amara's work, or my entitlement to them. The arrogance made bile rise in my throat. But then Selene leaned forward, voice low, intimate. There's something else, she said. Something Amara has not disclosed to this court. The room hushed. My pulse thundered. Amara Cole is not who she claims to be. Selene's eyes pinned me like a butterfly. Her legal identity has a complication, a family record that changes everything about inheritance, ownership, even the patents themselves. Renee jumped up. Objection. This is irrelevant and deliberately inflammatory. The judge held up a hand. Overruled. Let her continue. But this better be good, Ms. Hart. Selene's smirk deepened. Very well. I have here, she said, pulling a folded document from her purse, a certified copy of a birth record from Imo State, Nigeria. It proves that Amara Chukwukelu Cole is not the sole heir to her father's name, or his intellectual legacy. She has a half-sibling, a brother. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Gasps, whispers, murmurs filled the air. My vision blurred, my breath stuttered. A brother? No, that wasn't possible. My father. My father had never— Selene's voice sliced through my thoughts. And this half-brother, Your Honor, has equal legal claim to her patents, which means Amara Cole's ownership is not singular, as she testified, which means everything she has built is already divided before she even steps into court. I gripped the table until my knuckles turned white. My legs trembled. The judge leaned forward, scanning the document. Ezra's hand landed firmly on my shoulder, steadying me. But his whisper sent chills down my spine. She's not lying, Amara. Your father. He did have another child. My ears rang. The world tilted. And then the bailiff announced, The court recognizes a late witness, Mr. Kelechi Cole. The doors swung open, and there he was, a man who carried my father's jawline, his walk, his eyes. My lost brother. The courtroom doors banged shut behind him, echoing like a drumbeat in my chest. The man walked with steady strides, shoulders squared, chin lifted. He wasn't a stranger, and yet he was. His resemblance to my father was undeniable. Same jawline, same wide-set eyes. Same way of scanning a room as though measuring it in silence. His suit was simple, well-pressed, not flashy like Darius's or Selena's circle. He carried no entourage, only a leather folder tucked under his arm. Mr. Kelechi Cole, the bailiff announced, handing a document to the clerk. Recognized as a late witness. I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled against the wooden table as I stared at him. My brother. My lost brother. The one I had never known existed. The judge, composed even under the rising chaos, leaned forward. Mr. Cole, the court does not typically allow late witnesses without prior notice. Explain yourself. Kelechi bowed his head briefly, voice deep and resonant. Your Honor, I only learned of these proceedings yesterday evening when certain individuals sought me out. His gaze flicked toward Selene, sharp as glass. I came because I could not allow lies to take root unchallenged. Selene's lips curled into a cat-like smile. She leaned back in her seat, satisfied. She thought she had delivered the final blow. My heart raced. Was he here to help her? Or me? The judge nodded curtly. Proceed, but keep it concise. Selene's lawyer pounced. Mr. Cole, for the record, please state your relation to the respondent. Amara Cole. Kelechi adjusted his tie. We share the same father. Gasps rippled through the courtroom again. Reporters scribbled furiously. Selena's attorney smirked. And you can confirm this, with evidence? Yes, Kelechi said evenly. He opened his folder, pulling out a certified birth certificate, the same one Selene had teased moments before. Born in Owerri, Imo State, our father, Chima Cole, acknowledged me privately before his death. My mother chose silence for many years, but records remain. Selene sat straighter, eyes gleaming with triumph. So you agree, her lawyer said, that you share legal claim to Amara's inheritance. Intellectual or otherwise? For the first time, Kelechi looked directly at me. His eyes softened, just slightly, though his jaw stayed hard. No. The room froze. No? The attorney sputtered. But you just… I confirm the blood, Kelechi interrupted, his voice louder now, carrying across the chamber. But inheritance is not merely blood, sir. It is work. It is sweat. It is sacrifice. I never lifted a hand in the building of Amara's patents. I cannot, in good conscience, claim what I did not labor for. A hush fell so deep, even the reporters stopped scratching their pens. Selene's smile faltered. Her attorney blinked, caught off guard. Mr. Cole, with respect, your personal feelings about work do not override the law. The law recognizes fairness when it is spoken aloud, Kelechi shot back, and I am here to speak it. If you want to use my name to weaken hers, you will not succeed. Because I testify now, before God and this court, all that Amara has built is hers alone, not mine, not anyone else's. Tears stung my eyes before I could stop them. This man I'd never met, my brother, wasn't here to strip me bare. He was here to stand beside me. Selena's face hardened, her mask cracking. She whispered furiously to her lawyer, but the damage was done. The judge leaned back, studying Kelechi with sharp eyes. Mr. Cole, you understand the weight of what you've just said? You are relinquishing any potential claim? I am, he said firmly. I want it entered into record. The judge nodded slowly. So entered. She tapped her gavel once. Celine shifted in her chair, fury slipping through her polished veneer. Darius looked between her and me, confusion clouding his features. He hadn't expected this either. Renee seized the moment. She rose, voice ringing clear. Your Honor, this testimony not only neutralizes the petitioner's claim of divided inheritance, it also strengthens our argument that Ms. Cole's ownership is singular and undisputed. We renew our motion to quash their injunction and dismiss this baseless attack with prejudice. The judge steepled her fingers. I will take this under advisement. Both parties will submit final briefs by 6 p.m. tonight. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning, at which point I will issue my ruling. The gavel struck. The sound reverberated through my chest like thunder rolling away. Outside the courtroom, the press exploded, shouting questions, flashing cameras. Amara, how do you respond to your half-brother's testimony? Selene, did you know about Kalechi beforehand? Darius, is your marriage already in trouble? Security pushed the crowd back as we exited through a side corridor. My legs felt weak, my head spinning with too much noise. In the hallway, Kalechi approached me. For a long moment, we simply stared at each other. Then he extended his hand. Sister, he said softly. The word cracked something in me. My throat tightened, tears spilling despite myself. I clasped his hand, then pulled him into a sudden, desperate embrace. For the first time in days, I didn't feel alone. Ezra watched us, his expression unreadable but his eyes bright. Looks like the family just got stronger, he murmured. But the moment of peace didn't last. Because down the hall, Selene stood with Darius, whispering heatedly. Her face was tight, furious, her fingers digging into his arm. And though I couldn't hear her words, I could read her lips. She'll regret this. The way she said it sent chills down my spine. That night, our war room glowed with lamplight once again. Ezra spread documents across the table. Renee drafted motions on her laptop, and Kalechi sat quietly, watching us work, absorbing everything. You know she won't stop, Ezra said. Selene doesn't lose gracefully. If the judge rules against her tomorrow, she'll take this to the media, to the board, to anyone who will listen. We need to be ready. I rubbed my temples, exhaustion pressing down on me. I know, but what else can she use against me now? The forged documents are weak. The inheritance claim collapsed. What's left? Kalechi's voice was low, steady. Her power is perception. She'll try to turn the world against you before the law can save you. I nodded slowly. Then we fight perception with truth. We go public. Ezra frowned. That's risky. Once you speak out, there's no going back. Every word will be dissected. I don't care, I said. They already tried to erase my name. If silence is a weapon for them, then voice will be mine. I looked at Kalechi. Will you stand beside me? He nodded without hesitation. Always. And so we drafted a statement, me and my newfound brother, ready to release at dawn. It was raw, real, and unpolished, but it carried my truth. I, Amara Chukwukelu Cole, stand by the work I built with my own hands. My patents are mine, born of years of sacrifice. My brother, Kalechi, has come forward not to divide, but to stand with me. We will not be silenced. We will not be erased. And we will not hand over the legacy of our father to lies. To every young woman watching, guard your name, guard your work, guard your truth. Real wealth walks quietly, but it does not bow. We scheduled it to post on every platform at 7 a.m., just hours before the judge's ruling. But even as I hit save, a shadow gnawed at my chest. Celine's words replayed in my mind. She'll regret this, because I knew Celine wasn't finished. She still had one last card, and I feared that card would cut deeper than forged signatures, deeper than inheritance claims, something personal, something devastating. And I was right. Because as the clock struck midnight, my phone buzzed with a message that froze my blood. It was a video from Celine, and in it was Darius, whispering my name like a curse. The video began in darkness, a faint hum of background noise, the kind of quiet static that comes from a phone being held too close. Then Darius's voice, low and sharp, cut through. "She thinks she's untouchable," he muttered. "She thinks those papers, those so-called patents, mean something without me, without my name. But let her have her little moment. Tomorrow she'll fall." I froze, my blood rushing cold. His voice was unmistakable. The man I had once trusted with my heart, my home, my dreams, now plotting my ruin with a venom I hadn't known he possessed. The screen flickered, and light revealed him. Darius sat on a leather sofa, drink in hand, tie loosened. Celine was behind the camera, her reflection faint in the window pane. "Say it again," she coaxed, her tone syrupy. He smirked, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Amara is nothing without me. I gave her the stability to sit in that house and scribble nonsense. And now she wants to shut me out of an $8 billion deal?" He barked a laugh. "She'll regret it. I'll burn her name down to ashes before I let her keep a cent." The video ended abruptly, but the damage lingered like smoke. My chest constricted, fury and heartbreak colliding in waves. Ezra cursed under his breath, slamming his palm on the table. "That snake! He doesn't even realize Celine is using him as her puppet." Kelechi leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "She's clever. She didn't send this to the court. Not yet. She sent it to you, to shake you, to make you doubt yourself before the ruling." Renee, still typing furiously on her laptop, looked up. "This can cut both ways. If Celine leaks it to the press, the narrative will explode. Husband claims wife owes him everything. But if we leak it first, it exposes Darius as manipulative and undermines their credibility entirely." My mind spun. The thought of parading my broken marriage before the world made bile rise in my throat. But I also knew Kelechi was right. Celine wanted me rattled. "Play her game," Ezra urged. "Strike first. We control the story, not them." I shook my head, pacing the room. If I leak this, the media will feast on my pain. They won't see strategy. They'll see scandal. And my work, the very heart of it, will drown in gossip. Kelechi's voice was calm, steady, a counterweight to the storm. "Then use it wisely. Not as scandal, but as truth. Let the people see what you've endured and why you refuse to bow. They can't erase you if you own your story." I stopped pacing, his words sinking deep. Own my story. My grandmother's voice echoed in memory. A name that bends for fear will never stand again. I straightened. We release it, but not as gossip, as evidence, as proof of his intent to destroy me. Renee nodded approvingly. We can file it as supplemental evidence with the judge by morning. Once it's in the record, Celine can't spin it. And if the media catches wind, so be it. Their outrage will work in our favor. Ezra grinned, sharp and fierce. "Now we're talking." The night stretched long. By dawn, Renee had drafted the motion, attaching the video with a sworn affidavit verifying its authenticity. Kelechi stayed by my side, offering quiet strength, while Ezra made calls to contacts who could ensure the video reached the right ears if Celine tried to bury it. But exhaustion weighed heavy. My body ached, my mind frayed. I sank into the couch in the corner of our war room, staring at the rain streaking the window. And for a moment, I let the memories flood in. Darius and I, back when laughter filled our tiny kitchen. Him holding my hand during storms, promising we'd weather anything together. The soft moments that had blinded me to the cracks forming beneath. Had it all been lies? Or had greed poisoned him slowly, drop by drop, until the man I loved rotted into the one I saw on that video? I wiped my eyes. No more tears for him, not when so much was at stake. At 9 a.m., we walked back into the courthouse, armed with truth. The courtroom buzzed louder than the day before. News of Kelechi's testimony had already hit the airwaves. Headlines flashed across phones and whispered conversations. Secret brother saves billionaire deal? Celine's case unravels? Celine entered with her usual poise, but I saw the tension in her jaw, the stiffness in her shoulders. Darius followed. His expression a mix of arrogance and unease. He had no idea his late-night confession was about to detonate beneath his feet. The judge entered, gavel striking. We reconvene on the matter of King Heart Holdings versus Amara Cole. Ms. Hayes, you filed supplemental evidence this morning. Proceed. Renee rose smoothly. Yes, Your Honor. Last night, we received a video recording of Mr. King, made voluntarily in the presence of Ms. Hart, in which he explicitly states his intent to destroy Ms. Cole's reputation and fraudulently claim her intellectual property. With the court's permission, we request to play the recording now. The judge nodded. Granted. The clerk dimmed the lights. The video played on the screen. Darius's face filled the courtroom. His smirk, his laugh, his words dripping with malice. Amara is nothing without me. I'll burn her name down to ashes before I let her keep a cent. Gasps erupted. Reporters scribbled frantically. Even the judge's eyes widened. When the lights came back on, silence hung heavy. Darius shifted in his seat, sweat beading his forehead. That was taken out of context, he stammered. I was venting. Objection, Your Honor, Renee cut in sharply. The context is clear. Intent to commit fraud and malicious defamation. This undermines the credibility of both Mr. King and Ms. Hart, who knowingly recorded and concealed this until now. The judge's gaze snapped to Celine. Ms. Hart, is this true? Did you record this? Celine, for the first time, faltered. Her lips parted, then closed. Her silence was answer enough. The judge's voice was steel. This court does not take kindly to manipulation of proceedings. I will consider sanctions against the petitioner for presenting potentially fraudulent evidence while withholding this recording. Until then, I am leaning strongly toward dismissal of this injunction. Relief surged through me, tears stinging my eyes. Ezra squeezed my shoulder, Kelechi's hand steady at my back. But even in defeat, Celine's eyes blazed. She leaned toward me across the aisle, her voice a hiss only I could hear. This isn't over. You may win in court, Amara, but outside these walls, I'll make sure your empire crumbles before it even rises. Her words chilled me to the bone, because I knew she meant them. That night, as we regrouped in Ezra's office, Renee reviewed the judge's statements. We're likely to get a dismissal tomorrow. Once that happens, escrow will unfreeze, and the $8 billion deal can proceed. You'll have won, Amara. Legally. But Kelechi shook his head. Not morally. Not in the court of public opinion. Celine will go to the press. She'll spin, she'll smear, she'll poison the narrative. And investors are easily spooked. I nodded slowly. He was right. Celine wasn't beaten yet. She was just cornered. And cornered enemies are the most dangerous. I stared out the window at the city lights, my reflection staring back at me. My father's blood, my grandmother's wisdom, my own sweat. All of it carried me here. But the war wasn't just about patents anymore. It was about survival, about legacy, about showing every girl who had ever been silenced that her voice mattered. And tomorrow, when the ruling came down, I knew I'd have to make a choice. Stay quiet and let the deal speak for itself, or go loud and risk everything to silence Celine once and for all. To my viewers watching this unfold, if you were me, standing on the edge of victory, but staring down a rival who refuses to quit, what would you do? Would you take the quiet win, or would you go loud and crush her completely? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget, subscribe, like, and share this story so others can join us on this journey. The storm isn't over yet, because tomorrow the gavel will fall. And when it does, the real war will begin. The morning of the ruling broke gray and heavy. Clouds pressed low over Atlanta, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. I stood in front of the mirror in Ezra's office, hands trembling as I adjusted the lapels of my blazer. My braids were pulled back in a neat bun, my face bare save for a touch of powder to hold the shine. No jewels, no ornaments, just me. Ezra appeared behind me, his tie already knotted tight, his expression grim. "You ready?" "No," I admitted, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "But I'll go anyway." Kelechi stepped into the doorway, his presence calm, grounding. "You don't have to carry this alone, Amara. Remember that." I met his eyes in the mirror and nodded. For the first time, I believed him. The courthouse was packed to the rafters. The story had already swallowed headlines across the country. Billion-dollar bride wars, betrayed wife versus new mistress. News vans lined the street, reporters swarming like bees. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Celine was already seated, radiant in a crimson dress, lips painted a bold scarlet that screamed defiance. Darius sat beside her, jaw tight, eyes darting between me and the floor. He looked less like a groom now and more like a man shackled to the wrong queen. The judge entered, gavel striking. The sound silenced the room instantly. After reviewing the evidence, testimonies, and supplemental submissions, she began, her tone crisp and measured, this court finds that the petitioners, Kinghart Holdings, have failed to establish credible ownership or joint entitlement over the intellectual property in question. The words rang like bells in my ears. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court notes attempts at manipulation and the introduction of questionable documents. As such, the injunction is dismissed with prejudice. Costs are awarded to the respondent. The gavel fell. Bang. It was done. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled. Cameras flashed. Murmurs turned into shouts. My chest heaved, tears threatening. But I held them back. I had won. Legally, decisively, publicly. Ezra grinned, clapping my shoulder. Kelechi's hand found mine and squeezed firmly. Renee exhaled in relief, already gathering her files. But across the aisle, Celine didn't flinch. She didn't frown. She simply smiled, slow, dangerous, like a predator watching prey walk into a second trap. She leaned toward Darius, whispered something, and then stood. "Your Honor," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "May I be heard, briefly?" The judge looked irritated. "Ms. Hart, this case is dismissed." "Yes," Celine said, her tone honey-sweet. But the public should know the truth, shouldn't they? Since Ms. Cole insists on portraying herself as a victim. The judge banged her gavel again. This courtroom is adjourned. But Selene wasn't speaking to the judge anymore. She was speaking to the reporters, to the cameras, to the world. She pulled out her phone, screen glowing, and with a single swipe, uploaded something to the press pool chat group. Within seconds, phones across the courtroom buzzed and pinged. Screens lit up. Gasps spread like wildfire. "What is that?" I whispered, dread coiling in my stomach. Ezra's eyes darkened as he read over a reporter's shoulder. "It's private messages." And then I saw it. On every screen, splashed across every device, were fragments of my emails, snippets of conversations with board members, notes I had written to myself in the dead of night, venting my exhaustion, doubting my strength, questioning whether I could carry the deal through. One line blared in bold across headlines. "Sometimes I wish I could just walk away from all of this. It's too heavy for me alone." Celine's voice rose above the clamor. "This is your heroine? A woman who admits in her own words that she can't handle the weight of an $8 billion deal? Who questioned her own capacity? Who concealed doubts from her so-called partners?" Reporters shouted. Cameras clicked. The tide shifted in an instant. I felt my throat tighten, shame crawling up my neck. Those words had been private, meant only for me. Honest cracks in the armor I wore every day. Now Selene had weaponized them. The judge stormed out, furious, but it didn't matter. The trial was over, yet the war was only beginning, fought not with gavels, but with perception. Selene turned to me, her smile sharp as glass. "Congratulations on your legal victory, Amara. But in the court of public opinion?" She tapped her phone. "You just lost." Back in the war room, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Renee paced, furious. "This is illegal. Hacking private correspondence? We can subpoena her for data theft." "She won't care," Ezra interrupted, voice grim. "By the time the law catches up, the story will already be viral." He was right. My phone buzzed endlessly. Notifications, news alerts, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some supportive, most questioning. "Are you really overwhelmed? Do you think you can handle this deal? Should we be worried?" Every word Selene had stolen was now fuel for doubt. Investors didn't want visionaries who doubted themselves, even in private. They wanted unbreakable myths. Kelechi sat across from me, calm, steady. "Sister," he said softly, "you don't have to be unbreakable to win. You just have to be true." I looked at him, tears threatening. "But truth doesn't trend. Lies do." Ezra leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "Then we make truth trend. We flip the script." Renee stopped pacing. "You'll need to go public, on your own terms. Not with a written statement, not with carefully filtered sound bites, with your voice, your face, raw, live." My stomach lurched. "A live broadcast?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Tonight. You tell your story in your own words. You show the world you're not a machine. You're human. You struggled. You doubted. You endured. And you still built something extraordinary. That's not weakness. That's strength." Kelechi nodded. "Let them see the real Amara. Not the one Selene twisted. The one our father raised. The one who never bowed, even under storms." The thought terrified me, but I knew they were right. Silence would let Selene define me. Voice would reclaim me. I drew a deep breath, my resolve hardening. "Then we go live tonight." Hours later, we sat in front of a camera. A small crew Ezra trusted handled the stream. Lights burned warm against my skin. The countdown ticked down. 5, 4, 3. I looked straight into the lens, straight into the eyes of millions watching. "My name is Amara Chukukelu Cole," I began, voice steady, heart pounding. And yes, I doubted myself. Yes, I said it was too heavy. Because it was. Building something from nothing is heavy. Carrying the weight of expectations, of communities, of futures. It is heavy. I paused, letting the silence hang. But those doubts did not stop me. They fueled me. They reminded me I am human, not a myth. And it is precisely because I doubted that I worked harder, prayed deeper, and pushed further. Doubt is not weakness. It is proof that we are reaching beyond what seems possible. My throat tightened, but I pressed on. "Celine wants you to believe my humanity disqualifies me. But I stand here to tell you, humanity is my strength. I am not untouchable. I am not unbreakable. I am real. And I will not be erased." The comments streamed in fast. "Preach! This is power. We believe in you, Amara." I leaned closer to the lens. To everyone watching, have you ever been told your doubts make you weak? Have you ever felt small before something too big to carry? If you have, tell me in the comments. Because you're not alone. I'm proof that doubt does not kill dreams. Giving up does. And I will never give up. I ended with my grandmother's words. Real wealth walks quietly, but it walks. And so will I. The stream ended. Silence filled the room for a moment, then erupted into applause. Ezra, Kalechi, Renee, even the crew. But I knew this wasn't the end. Celine would come back harder, more desperate. And I was right. Because an hour later, as support poured in from across the world, a notification lit up my phone. A news alert. Celine Hart announces lawsuit seeking control of Coal Trust assets. Claims explosive evidence to be revealed tomorrow. Dear viewers, this battle isn't over yet. What do you think Celine is hiding? What explosive evidence could she possibly have left? Comment your guesses below. I'm curious to know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe and share, because the final chapters of this story will shake everything you think you know. The next morning dawned with tension so thick it clung to the air like humidity before a thunderstorm. I hadn't slept. My phone buzzed relentlessly through the night. Messages from investors, friends, strangers. Some sent prayers, others demanded reassurance. But they all had one question burning behind their words. What is Celine's explosive evidence? I wished I knew. Ezra brewed strong coffee in the corner of the war room, his eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. Renee sat at the table, laptop open, fingers dancing across the keyboard as she prepared for whatever legal ambush Celine had staged. Kalechi paced the room, his calm veneer cracked by worry. She thrives on spectacle, he muttered, fists clenching. If she's promising evidence, it will be something outrageous, something meant to shame, not prove. Ezra looked up. And that's exactly why it will work. Unless we're ready. I stared out the rain-streaked window, my reflection pale and weary, but unbroken. Let her bring whatever she has, I said, my voice low but steady. I'll face it. The courthouse was even more crowded than before. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones thrust forward, their voices clashing in a chaotic chorus. Amara, are you afraid of what Celine's about to reveal? Is it true your marriage ended because of secrets you kept? Celine says she has proof you lied to investors. What's your response? I kept walking, Ezra and Kalechi flanking me like bodyguards, Renee striding ahead with her case file clutched tight. Inside, the air crackled with anticipation. Celine sat at the petitioner's table, radiant in white this time, As though dressing herself in false innocence, Darius sat beside her, his face drawn and pale, as though regret was finally dawning, but not enough to save him. When the judge entered, the noise died instantly. "Court is now in session," she declared. "We are reconvened to address the petitioner's new filing." Celine's attorney rose smoothly, confidence dripping from his tone. "Your Honor, yesterday's ruling addressed ownership of Ms. Cole's patents. But today, we present new evidence proving Ms. Cole engaged in fraudulent concealment from both her husband and her investors." My heart pounded. Fraudulent concealment. What was he talking about? He continued, "Specifically, we have obtained records that Ms. Cole misrepresented her financial independence. While she claims to have built her inventions alone, in truth she relied on funds siphoned from accounts belonging to Mr. King, without his knowledge." The courtroom gasped. My breath caught in my throat. "That's a lie," I whispered fiercely, turning to Renee. "I never touched his money. I used grants, stipends, odd jobs, never his accounts." Renee's jaw tightened. "They've fabricated something. We'll fight it." Celine's attorney smirked and placed a folder on the evidence table. Exhibit B. Bank statements showing transfers from Mr. King's joint account to cover patent filing fees. Transfers authorized electronically under Ms. Cole's login credentials. My chest tightened. This was impossible. I had never used our joint account for my filings. In fact, I'd kept those expenses separate on purpose to avoid exactly this kind of claim. Ezra leaned in, whispering sharply, "Check the timestamps. Bet you anything they're forged." Renee requested to review the documents. The clerk handed them over. Her eyes scanned fast, her lips pursed. "As I suspected," she whispered. "These transfers were logged on dates when you weren't even in the country. You were in Lagos on consortium business. There's no way you authorized them." But Celine wasn't finished. She rose herself, her voice clear, calculated, designed to sting. "Your Honor, these records prove Amara built her empire on deception. She tells the world she is self-made, but in reality, she drained her husband's resources behind his back. She is not a visionary. She is a thief." Her words sliced deep. Reporters scribbled. Cameras flashed. I could feel the tide shifting again, the weight of public judgment pressing down. Renee stood, fierce as fire. "Objection. These so-called transfers are fraudulent. My client can prove she was not even present when they occurred. Furthermore, the petitioner's sudden access to private bank data raises serious questions of theft and hacking. We request this entire exhibit be stricken." The judge frowned, clearly displeased with the theatrics. "I will review both claims. But Ms. Hart, you tread dangerously close to contempt with your repeated stunts in this courtroom." Celine only smiled, unbothered. She knew she had already achieved her goal, planting doubt. During recess, we huddled in a side chamber, tension running high. "This is their dirtiest move yet," Renee snapped, scrolling through the statements. "They've forged digital trails. To the untrained eye, it looks real." Ezra swore under his breath. "We need a forensic expert, fast. Someone who can testify tomorrow that these are doctored." "I know someone," Kelechi said suddenly. "A man in Lagos, an old friend. He works in cybersecurity. If we can get him the files, he'll prove the metadata's corrupted." Renee nodded. "Do it. Send him everything." I sat in silence, my mind spinning. Celine had dug into the one area I thought untouchable, my finances. She wanted to paint me as a liar, a thief, someone unworthy of trust. And the worst part? Some people would believe her. Kelechi knelt in front of me, his hand steady on mine. Don't let her shake you. You know the truth, and so do we. I swallowed hard, forcing the fear back down. She won't win. Not this time. Not ever. That evening, back in the war room, we waited for Kelechi's contact to send his findings. The hours dragged. The weight of Selena's accusations pressed heavy on my chest. At last, near midnight, Kelechi's phone buzzed. He read the message, eyes widening. He found it. The metadata doesn't match. The transfers were fabricated with cloned credentials. Celine's team planted them. Relief crashed over me, but it was fleeting, because at that exact moment, my own phone buzzed with another notification. A news alert. Breaking, Celine Hart claims to have video proof of Amara Cole admitting to financial misconduct. Full release scheduled at tomorrow's press conference. My blood froze. Video proof? I looked at Ezra, Renee, Kelechi. Their faces mirrored my fear. She's manufacturing lies faster than we can fight them, Ezra muttered. Renee clenched her fists. Then tomorrow, we hit her harder than she's ever been hit. We expose the forgery in court, and we dismantle whatever video she thinks she has. But deep down, a terrible question gnawed at me. What if she did have a video? Not forged this time, not twisted, but something real. Taken out of context, a moment of weakness I'd forgotten, now sharpened into a weapon? I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy. Tomorrow would decide everything. The courthouse was a storm waiting to break. By the time I arrived, news vans had already claimed every curb space, satellite dishes jutting toward the sky. Reporters pressed against barricades, their voices blending into a hungry roar. Amara, did you siphon money from your husband's account? Do you admit to financial misconduct? Selene says she'll show the video today. Are you prepared to step down from the 8B deal? Prepared to step down? My grandmother's words echoed like a drumbeat in my chest. Real wealth walks quietly. But it walks, and I would walk into this courtroom with my head high. Ezra was beside me, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk. Kelechi flanked my other side, calm but firm, his steady presence a shield. Renee marched ahead with her briefcase swinging, her face carved from stone. We entered through the heavy oak doors into a courtroom thick with tension. Reporters packed the benches, pens poised, cameras ready to click at the faintest flicker of weakness. Celine was already there. She wore black this time, sleek and dramatic. Her hair slicked back, diamonds dripping from her ears like icicles. Beside her sat Darius, visibly fraying at the edges, his hands restless, his eyes darting everywhere but mine. He looked like a man who knew the ground was about to crumble beneath his feet. The judge entered, and silence fell like a curtain. Court is now in session, she declared. We are here to review new evidence filed by the petitioner. Selena's lawyer rose smoothly. Your Honor, we have a recording. In it, Ms. Cole admits, in her own words, to using marital funds to pursue her patents, contradicting her testimony. We request the video be played in full. The judge's expression was flat. Proceed. The clerk dimmed the lights. The screen flickered to life. The video showed me, hunched over a desk in my old apartment years ago. My hair tied in a loose scarf, papers scattered around me. My voice was weary, almost broken. I can't keep doing this alone, I whispered. I'm using what we have just to survive, just to keep these filings moving. If Darius ever finds out, he'll kill me with words. But I can't stop now. I have to finish this. The clip ended abruptly. The lights came back on. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. My chest clenched. I remembered that night. It was after a brutal week of rejections, when I'd pawned my last laptop and borrowed $50 from a friend to cover fees. I had spoken into a voice memo app, half rant, half prayer. Somehow, Celine had it. She had stolen the weakest moment of my life and sharpened it into a blade. Her lawyer's voice cut through the noise. Your Honor, this is a direct admission. Ms. Cole herself says she used what we have, meaning joint resources, to fund her patents. Case closed. The courtroom murmured. The tide was turning. Renee stood, her voice sharp. Objection. This video is incomplete. Taken out of context and unlawfully obtained. We request it be stricken. The judge frowned. Do you contest its authenticity? Renee glanced at me. I nodded, trembling but firm. It's me, I admitted, my voice low but clear. But it's not what they claim it is. That night, I wasn't talking about Darius's money. I was talking about scraps, grants, borrowed change, favors, survival. I used myself up, not him. Celine smirked, her trap springing shut. Your Honor, she admits the video is real. The words speak for themselves. The judge held up a hand. Enough. I'll allow cross-examination. Ms. Hayes, proceed. Renee walked to the witness stand where I sat, her eyes steady on mine. Amara, she said gently, can you explain to the court what you meant by what we have in that video? I drew a shaky breath. The courtroom waited, every ear bent toward me. When I said those words, I began, my voice cracking but strong, I wasn't talking about marital accounts. I was talking about scraps, about ramen noodles for dinner, candles when the power bill went unpaid, odd jobs that barely covered rent. We, me and Darius, had nothing but struggle. And out of that, I found ways to build. But I never touched his money. Not once. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. If anything, he took from me my time, my faith, my silence. I built my work in the margins of that pain. And that night, I spoke out of exhaustion, not deceit. A hush fell over the courtroom. Some reporters lowered their pens, listening differently now. Renee nodded. One more question, Amara. Why, despite the pressure, despite the betrayals, do you keep fighting for this deal? Tears stung my eyes, but I let them fall. Because it's bigger than me. This isn't about luxury or pride. It's about roads in villages where children still walk barefoot miles to school. It's about water plants for communities that drink from polluted streams. It's about a promise I made when I was 12 years old, selling sachets of water in traffic, that if I ever had the power to change lives, I would. And I will not let greed steal that from me. The courtroom erupted into murmurs again, but this time different, warmer. Some reporters even nodded. Ezra's eyes glistened. Kalechi's jaw tightened in pride. Celine's smirk slipped. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker in her eyes. The judge leaned forward, her voice firm. This court recognizes the video, but also acknowledges its lack of context. Taken with the weight of testimony and corroborating evidence, I do not find it credible as proof of fraud. The dismissal of the injunction stands. The deal will proceed. Her gavel struck. Bang. The sound was final. I had won. Legally, publicly, personally. But Celine wasn't done. As the courtroom emptied, she brushed past me, her perfume sharp, her whisper sharper. You may have survived the courtroom, she hissed. But mark my words, Amara, you won't survive the world outside it. Then she was gone, dragging a broken-looking Darius in her wake. I stood frozen, her words echoing in my head. But then Kalechi stepped beside me, steady as ever. "You survived storms before, sister," he said softly. "You'll survive this one too, because storms pass, but names endure." I lifted my head, heart pounding. He was right. My grandmother was right. Real wealth walked quietly, and so would I. To my viewers who've stayed with me through this journey, what would you have done if your darkest, weakest words were twisted and shown to the world? Would you have fought, or would you have bowed? Tell me in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, if you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or doubted, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Because stories like this aren't just mine. They're ours. The gavel has fallen. The case is closed. But the battle for legacy, the one that lives beyond courtrooms and contracts, has only just begun.